海外に逃げたったと。そんなことできるわけが。
そういう訓練だけをしてきた。
A lot of protagonists get humiliated for having weak powers to begin with, but later on, their discovery will lead them to greater good, and before you know it, they have managed to become the strongest among everyone else. So that is why in today's video, we will be looking over 10 anime where the main character is humiliated for being weak, but turns out to be stronger than everyone else. So if you're new around here, please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel with the notification bell icon turned on to stay up to date with the latest anime news and recommendations right at your doorstep. Now, without keeping you all waiting, let us begin with the video. So why don't we start this list off with Demon Spirit Seed Manual, which is a Chinese animation series, and as we all know, Chinese anime have a different approach. Maybe a lot of you prefer Japanese anime, but if you want to try something a little bit different for a change with a language you might not always hear, I would say this anime is not bad at all. Overall, the animation is quite decent, and you can easily compare it with low-budget Japanese anime these days, since every season, a few of them really exist. It's a strange concept for a protagonist who wants to become a gardener, and then meets a man who has fairy seeds, and after taking the man's dream and cultivating the seed, his life changes around, and the fairy wishes to now kill him. Now, it's not the best Chinese anime I've seen, and I've seen plenty of better ones, but it's quite decent. If you haven't seen it, then I guess this is your chance. Next up on the list is The Last Crusade, and to be honest, the power of coincidences is very interesting, but what if it was powered up to the point that it strengthens bonds between two people? I'm sure that almost everyone knows what Romeo and Juliet is. It's one of those, the most, recognizable and popular works of literature known to mankind. Pretty much the same premise is Romeo and Juliet happens within this anime right here. Two factions exist, and we have our protagonists for each side. For the Empire, we have the swordsman Isuka, who looks like Kirito, and for the other, we have the Ice Princess Alice. Both of our protagonists desire to end this pointless war, meeting each other by fate, and as time passes by, their relationship seems to really develop a lot. Now, similar to Romeo and Juliet, well, of course, but it has magic. Is it a total ripoff? Debatable. Boring? Absolutely not. The anime has a cliched premise, but it still managed to make me so interested to find out more about what happens, and at some point, hopefully, this gets a second season. So what happens when you get isekai to a game world and end up being a mob character, meaning you're just a background character who has nothing to do with the story? Well, the answer is quite simple. You just need to barge your way into the scene and take the spotlight and destroy your enemies to show them all your potential. This is kind of what happens in this anime, and this is Trapped in a Dating Simulator. The protagonist Leon finished a dating simulator game in reality and ends up getting transported to that world as a background character in school. People treated him as a powerless being because women are so supreme in that world, and only the most noble of men have a chance to be treated fairly. Of course, Leon is a protagonist who likes to act evil at times, and yeah, he can be an ass sometimes, but his power comes down to his game knowledge. He has beaten the game and knows the routes to take. Sometimes events even trigger sooner than later, making things very unpredictable on and what can happen. It's a very entertaining anime that I highly recommend for everyone. I would like to get this out of the way and say that this is a comedy anime. Now, the biggest complaints come from people who are taking the show too seriously or question the logic in some situations. This anime is called Full Dive RPG, following a protagonist named Hiro who was forced to play a super realistic RPG game where feelings, graphics, and everything is essentially equal to real life. He's not trapped in there or anything, but more like feelings are pretty real. Now, he suffers a lot in quests, gets labeled as a best friend killer, and all goes downhill well for him. He's pretty much weak and average looking, and even when training in the academy, people make fun of him. Full Dive is a very decent parody that has some kind of genuinely funny jokes that are material for long-running memes. It points out how realism in gaming is not necessarily good and how bad a pain system in a game would be. This isekai, as many know, is good and bad. Now, Arifureta suffers a lot from its poor action sequences, pretty much due to the CGI. It is, without question, some of the worst I've seen in the anime industry as a whole, which did slightly improve going into Season 2. Now, the story is what drives this anime into success, making it a very popular isekai anime to watch. Nagamu, the protagonist, a weakling from a high school class that was transferred to another world and was betrayed by a classmate because, they all just viewed him as a complete weakling who has no power to do anything. Thus, sending him to the lower dungeon levels to survive on his own changed him drastically as a person. He's not what he used to be, but now he has pretty much transformed into a powerful being who can shred opponents and do his best to reach the surface and unite with his class once again. Majutsu no Index is set in a world where both science and magic coexist. Now, Toma is your regular high school kid who lives within a place called Academy City, the so-called utopia of science, as well as the utopia for a new type of people known as espers. Now, people who have, the supernatural abilities by controlling the laws of science. Toma, being a student in the Academy City, has a strange power called Imagine Breaker, a skill which allows him to dispel anything magical or is a product of esper's powers. So, in simple terms, he has anti-magic abilities. Created by JC Staff in the year 2008, this is a very entertaining quality series of magic battles of a weakling becoming a powerful esper, where many view him as useless until he unlocks the true potential of his power. Radiant is such an underrated shonen anime, developed by Studio Lurch in the year 2018. The whole premise of the show is about Seth to find the Radiant and destroy it and save the world. Sounds fun, and let's go save the world. Now, one thing I like about this anime is how they deal with the discrimination against sorcerers. In the arc where they go to Rumble Town, Seth is forced to really understand what he is trying to do and who he is trying to save. I very much like this because even though his answer is somewhat, anyone would guess, he would say he does struggle trying to understand why he is doing all of this and for who. Most of the episodes is just simply slice of life stuff. Even though how much of anything happens, they are still fun episodes which fans of the show can really enjoy, as well as helps us to see more of the city they stay in. One of the main strengths, however, is the animation. The animation is very strong from start to finish. The fight scenes are so beautiful, which makes the show even more of a blast to watch. Let me start off by saying how much of a masterpiece Noragami truly is, and I really wish more people would talk about this show. Feels like the further we go on, the more people forget about the series such as this. And Studio Bones animated the show in 2014, and it tells the story of a god of calamity who retired to live a more peaceful life as a stray god, doing small silly jobs for some money and hiding his true powers. And that's mostly the reason why his spirit Yukine left him, due to Yato being just super lazy doing nothing. Music is some of the coolest I've ever heard during battle sequences, really hypes you up for epic moments, and I really love it. Yato as a character is one of my favorites. He's a jokester, but also, when things get serious, he can put out an amazing fight if he really wants to. say for sure that Orient had a very rocky start, meaning it wasn't great, but it did however get a lot better midway and even in the second season. Now this here is a samurai anime with quite the unique power system like many shonen anime. It follows the story of Musashi and his friend Kojiro, who have always had a dream of being the greatest bushi band of all time. The jobs of the bushi is to hunt oni, which are powerful creatures scattered across the land. Of course, to become a bushi, they would have to wield a powerful kitetsu blade, a sword that would accept the owner as its master, but however, the protagonist Musashi is having an issue with that. He is an outcast to this, and he can't become a bushi without a kitetsu blade. And now finally, to end things off, I'm recommending to all of you is Goblin Slayer, a story of a solo warrior of high rank who only prefers to slay goblins, and a lot of the other adventurers see him as a weakling for taking on missions on small monsters, but everyone just doesn't know how dangerous goblins can truly be. Along with his ruthless nature, the Goblin Slayer utilizes a bunch of techniques to kill goblins and to keep the viewer entertained, but going into detail, it can be quite gruesome if you ask me, because this is a dark fantasy anime after all, with a lot of gore to it. Now the unique thing about Goblin Slayer is that he pretty much stays a faceless killing machine for the entire series until the very end, where he reveals his face. Now overall, I think this is such a great adaptation, and even though the CGI may not be great, the parts that aren't are absolutely fascinating to watch. Looks like you just made it to the end of the video and witnessed 10 anime where the main character is humiliated for being weak but turns out to be stronger than everyone else. So if I've managed to leave any anime out in particular that you thought would be a great addition on the list, then please let me know in the comment section down below, as I'd love to hear your video or opinion, or just comment down below what you thought about the video in general, as I'd always appreciate the feedback. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll be seeing you all in the next one.